So, what sort of explanation could the universe have? Well, it seems plausible, as 2 states, that if the universe has an explanation of its existence, that explanation is God. Why? Well, because in this case, the explanation of the universe must be greater than the universe. Think of the universe. All of space and time. All of physical reality. So the cause of the universe would have to be beyond space and time. Therefore, it cannot be physical or material. Now, there are only 2 kinds of things that can fit that description. Either abstract objects, like numbers, or else an intelligent mind. But you see, abstract objects can't cause anything. It's part of the definition of an abstract object that it can't cause anything or stand in causal relations. The number 7, for example, doesn't cause anything. And therefore it follows, final premise or conclusion, that therefore the explanation of the universe must be a personal, transcendent mind. There must be an unembodied mind which created the universe and explains why it exists, and that's exactly what people have traditionally referred to by the word God. Now, it's open to the naturalist to reply to this argument by insisting that while the universe does have an explanation of its existence, that explanation does not lie in an external cause, but rather in the necessity of the universe's own nature. Like numbers, the universe just exists necessarily. But this would be an extremely bold speculation which naturalists have not been eager to embrace. I think we have a very strong sense of the universe's contingency. We can conceive of a possible world in which no concrete objects exist. For example, a world in which only mathematical objects exist. Why should that be thought to be impossible? Moreover, I think there are good reasons for thinking that the universe does not exist by a necessity of its own nature. It's easy to conceive of the non-existence of any or all of the macroscopic objects that we observe in the world. In fact, prior to a certain point in the past, when the universe was very dense and very hot, none of these familiar objects did exist. So we know they're not necessary in their existence. Well, what about the fundamental building blocks of matter, fundamental particles like quarks? Well, again, it's easy to conceive of a universe in which all of the fundamental particles that compose macroscopic objects were replaced by other particles, other quarks. A universe which consists of an entirely different collection of quarks, for example, seems quite conceivable. But if that is the case, then it follows that the universe does not exist by a necessity of its own nature, because a universe which is composed of an entirely different collection of quarks would not be the same universe as this one. To illustrate this point, just ask yourself, could the shoes that you are wearing have been made of steel? Could the shoes that you're wearing now have been made of steel? Now, certainly you can imagine that you might have a pair of steel shoes which would be the same shape and style as the shoes that you're wearing. But that's not the question. The question is whether the very shoes that you have on could have been made of steel. And I think the obvious answer is, of course not. Those would be a different pair of shoes, not the same pair of shoes that you have on. And exactly the same is true of the universe. If the universe were composed of a different collection of quarks, or fundamental particles, it would be a different universe, not the same universe. And I don't think any naturalist would dare to suggest that some quarks, though looking just like ordinary quarks, have the occult property of being necessary in their existence, so that any universe that existed would have to include those quarks. It's all or nothing here. And nobody thinks that every quark exists by a necessity of its own nature. And it follows then that the universe doesn't exist by a necessity of its own nature either. So it seems to me that this first argument is a good reason for thinking that the explanation for why anything at all exists is to be found in a personal, transcendent mind, which is necessary in its existence and which is the cause of the contingent universe.